What's going on, people? Ronnie Speed coming back. You know what time it is, man. We have another banger video for you guys. And this video is the second video about taxes. So the date is currently what? February 25th. So if you guys been driving, you have probably received your 1099s in the mail, or you can access your 1099s through the Uber or Lyft app. So with that being said, if you get your 1099s, obviously you have to file your taxes. And for most of you guys who have never filed taxes by yourself, I would recommend the best way to do it is to hire a professional known as a CPA. And right now I have mine on Zoom with me. And we're going to go over a few questions that a lot of you guys may have and things to help you out with your taxes. So like I said, I would highly recommend hiring a professional because a lot of y'all will probably screw things up trying to not do them yourself or be cheap. So me, my CPA, his name is Max. Max, give a little quick introduction, letting people know how long you've been doing this and what exactly is a CPA for all the new people who probably never heard of this terminology.
All right, super. Thanks, Ronnie. Well, hey, I got in the tax world around 2006. I actually was on the opposite side working for the man as a tax collector back in the day, but started as a licensed CPA in 2015. And I think you and I met through the Dave Ramsey connection.
Yeah.
Working with him. I am a CPA, which is a certified public accountant. And for that, means that I've got a degree in business from a university. And then I passed some rigorous testing, and I worked under a licensed CPA for at least a year. So my background is as former tax collector, so I know all that if you're in trouble. And then also as a CPA practicing taxes for about 7 years now with my own firm. Does that answer that question okay?
Yeah. I think it answered it quite well. So now people are hearing this like, oh, CPA, well, why would I hire a CPA if I could do, my taxes myself? I want you to tell people why they should hire a CPA. Like, what are the benefits and what potential troubles or dangers they may get in themselves if they try to do things by themselves?
Super cool. Appreciate the question. So, some people are just living, basically paycheck to paycheck, and they get a paycheck, and they don't have too much complication. So they just file their taxes, and they might be just getting a refund or wanting to get all the tax credits that are due to them. So It does help to have a CPA if you're concerned about, wanting someone else to double check everything for you for that situation. But those type of people, if they ask me, hey, maybe I should file my own taxes using TurboTax or something like that. For them, we offer kind of a low cost, like $100 consultation if they wanted to hire me, where I could kind of look over their shoulder and give them some tips and feedback. But for most people, like an Uber driver, it's not trying to figure out how much money you made, but it's trying to figure out your expenses and what you can deduct so you don't owe taxes on it. And it becomes super important when you don't have those withholdings, and then it comes time to pay your taxes. And it becomes a big surprise sometimes for the Uber drivers when they've seen, okay, I got the regular state tax, I've got the federal tax, and then they got another 15.3% tax for self-employment. And all of a sudden it becomes, 40% tax bracket without them even knowing, and not even being in that high of a tax bracket overall. But because of all those three taxes added together, it's a huge surprise for them. So as their CPA, I'm going to work really hard to bring that liability down as low as legally possible. And like, for example, with you, since you do this YouTube channel about Uber and Lyft driving, we're able to get some extra deductions for your media and those costs. And that helps out quite a bit. Those are some of the things. There's a little bit of financial planning and budgeting type of stuff that we offer at my firm that helps people out, but without kind of letting it all loose in one sentence. Did you want to get into any things that we've already mentioned, or shall we get into some other stuff?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, since you made like a lot of good points right there. I was gonna ask you, let's say somebody wanted to hire you, like what can they expect like working with you? Is it just like taxes? Okay, like I'll hire you, you just do my taxes and that's it? Or are there any other, key benefits to working with you?
Cool, Ronnie. I appreciate the question. So this year, actually, I think after about 7 years of being a CPA, I think I've kind of figured out what people are looking for as far as going beyond the tax return. I say like a lot of times you work with a CPA or tax preparer, it's kind of like a once and done type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you give me all the information, I give you tax return, see you next year.
Right.
So what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to meet with people about 4 or 5 times a year, and it's all included in the base price of their tax preparation. Where once a year we like to do a statement of net worth to see where you're at, and what your liabilities are, and what your assets are, and see, time to check in, and then next year we can check in again to see if you made any progress or whatever. But more importantly, we do like to look at your retirement planning options. And you can't get a big tax deduction by investing in an IRA or a Roth IRA. And then also checking your investment portfolios. So I do a limited amount of that. I work with people for about an hour, and they can have their portfolios or investments anywhere they want. And I usually kind of zoom in over their shoulder and give them some tips and give them some evaluation of what they're doing and help them to make adjustments. And a big thing I've been finding is, for example, people will have a 401k account, and there might be about 40 different choices.
Right.
And that can be good. And they're usually pretty good choices. But a lot of times people don't know which fund is best for them. They might just say, hey, you think I'm going to retire at this date? I'm this old. That doesn't always take into account how aggressive they are as investors or how conservative they are. So I can usually go in there and we can look at those accounts, and we can typically, most of the time, my clients do reallocate their investment portfolio, and they are much happier through that consultation.
Okay, good. Well, prior to this question, I know you mentioned it's like Uber and Lyft drivers that they can have like different deductions. Like for me per se, I not only have like gas, but like media and stuff. What do you have like, or any suggestions that records that people should keep or like hold on to, like receipts or anything, or how important is that, do you think?
Definitely. Well, nowadays under the new tax law, most of the entertainment expenses aren't going to be deductible. But like you and I had to get together a while back where we were making a video to promote our businesses, and we had a little entertainment. So that was deductible in that case. So there can always be those exceptions. But for keeping receipts, in today's world, a lot of times we get bills that are auto-billed, right? So your phone receipts, your phone records and stuff like that, you can keep those receipts. But if you're also getting a copy online and emailed, it becomes a little bit less problematic.
Right.
So I have people deliver the records to me. It's usually a summary of the information, and I want them to have those receipts in the background. Now, if we went out and had a lunch together and it was just a one-time occasion for business, you might want to keep that receipt, make a little note of what's going on. Another thing is mileage log, but I believe for Uber, a lot of times they do give you mileage on the Uber app. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're pretty good there. Sometimes we can make little adjustments as I interview you, and we'll know a little bit more going forward through that process, and I'll be looking for any overlooked deductions. Can you think of a receipt that you keep yourself that you feel is kind of important?
No, no, I just pretty much track everything on my phone and, write it down. Because, people often believe that they have to, I need to keep track of all my seats. So now they're going to have like a little board, not board, like a little manila envelope full of receipts, or a drawer just full of receipts. And so just to, add some clarity.
No, that is a good question. Now that you mentioned it, I do think if you're using the standard mileage deduction, and a standard mileage deduction is typically if you have a vehicle that's not worth a lot and an older vehicle, usually you get a good advantage taking the standard mileage deduction. And if you got a newer vehicle and you want to get a little bit more aggressive, you may opt to do the actual mileage expenses. In that case, you might be looking at the extra hassle of keeping track of your gas receipts. I know we talked about car washes being deductible and different things like that. Food while you're driving. If you have to eat out because it's not convenient to go home and you're on your shift, those shift meals can be deductible. So definitely keep track of that. That's usually a pretty good deduction that oftentimes overlooked.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Good. Because a lot of people eat out on the road. I'm already knowing that.
Yeah, and, that could be 10, 20 bucks a day for some people.
Right. So now people are viewing this and they can clearly see that we're both in the California area. So let's say if they're like in Atlanta or somewhere in Texas, are you able to work with them?
Yeah, well, the great thing about my practice is I do almost everything virtually. So most of the time, even people in the same town, they just like to use the online portal. And, we'll usually meet with you briefly when you're submitting the documents. And then we'll usually have about an hour review to go over your tax return with you, answer any questions, make any adjustments. And it's super easy. I am licensed in all 50 states as an enrolled agent. And also CPAs generally recognize there's a process called reciprocation. So even though I'm licensed in California, I'm still able to practice all over. And, occasionally I do a few international returns too. I usually do the US side of it. And I have to take into account any taxes they paid for foreign taxes. And we get a tax credit for that in the United States.
Okay, sounds good. And when is the last day or the latest that they could, file their taxes in 2022?
Okay, well, to file on time without a penalty, you could be looking at October 15th. But you have to send the IRS an extension. And the reason why you put in an extension is that's letting the IRS know, hey, I am going to file my return. I know I need to file a return, and you can expect my return coming. So it's kind of like them getting on alert. Okay, we're going to need to get a return from so-and-so. So in exchange for that, they'll let you file it as late as October 15th without having any penalty owed. But on your side, you're telling them, hey, I do need to file a tax return. I don't qualify for an exemption due to low enough income or whatever, and you will be getting my return at such and such date. So, but normally it's April 15th for most Uber drivers, people who are filing a Schedule C.
Right. You hear that? April 15th, people. April 15th. So I know a lot of y'all going to probably send me DMs and questions April 15th. And I'm going to tell you every single week before April 15th to remind you.
And then just remember, if you are on extension, it's an extension for time to file, not an extension for time to pay. So sometimes if you're still getting all your records together and hey, I think I owe at least $5,000, if you're pretty sure you're going to owe a lot of money, you do need to make a payment, hopefully to cover your taxes, even though you're going to file later. Otherwise, you'll get a penalty for a late payment. So most people like to file by April 15th.
Okay. April 15th, once again. So how do you think most people can be prepared like next year for the upcoming like taxes? Like how can they best prepare themselves? Because I know a lot of people probably be caught off guard because it's like, nobody tells us about this. And if you coming from a regular 9 to 5, it's like you get a, what is it? It's not a 1090. W-2.
W-2.
Yeah. It's like you'll get a W-2 in the mail and it's like everything is pretty much taken care of for you. But it's like
I think a lot of times, with W-2, sometimes the employers are nice enough to offer like retirement packages and things like that. So they're automatically deducting things out of there. So as a sole proprietor or an Uber driver, you do want to take advantage of the retirement things that are done. For example, if you make an IRA contribution, you can lower your income tax related to that for every dollar you put into your IRA, you get $1 off your taxable income. Of course, there is estimated payments that you can make. If you do end up owing more than $1,000 at the end of the year, you are required to make estimated payments during the year to avoid an underpayment penalty. Now, they're usually not huge penalties. So if you miss the underpayment penalty and you are subject to it, and it's the first year, we can, as we process your return, try to put in a request for that to be relieved with a reasonable cause. And about half the time, they'll relieve the penalty for you the first time. So making estimated payments, setting money aside. Some people like to say, oh, I like to put 15% or 20% of all my gross receipts aside for taxes. So I'll have that available during the year. But for people who are working with me, we try to get together in like around August through October and do a tax projection for them, which is included in their tax services. And at that time, we try to predict, will you be breaking even? Will you be getting a refund? Or will you be owing taxes on April 15th? And that gives people about 6 months to save up if they need to, or to make payments. And it also, for people who are getting a refund or breaking even, it might help them plan out their holidays more to have that in order. So yeah, that's super huge for a lot of clients. And then just having that peace of mind, that we figured it out 6 months ahead of time, what was going to look like, helps out quite a bit.
Okay. And how should people legally structure their business? Like LLCs, the sole proprietor, or what do you best recommend for that?
For most Uber drivers, I believe that the sole proprietor is going to be the way to go, just because the way the taxation and law codes work. When we get into, like for yourself, clothing lines or shared businesses, or businesses where you might have some return on your business investment, it's not all related to your direct labor. Oftentimes doing an LLC or corporation could be encouraged. So, like using the RVL line that you have, that was a good example of, because you're thinking, okay, this could be something that I may want somebody to join me in. This could be something that's going to be more investment related, that you're doing the designs and logos, and as people purchase more, you hopefully have more profit. And then, so things like that, those are good entities to incorporate. And if you have a business that you're looking to start and you're not sure whether or not that's right for you, I'm happy to go over the pros and cons with you and the cost and benefit to figure out if that's a good choice for you to incorporate and what the best way to go is.
Okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, I hope that answered a lot of guys' questions right there, because I see a lot of people saying, oh, you should structure a business in an LLC, or you should do this way. But I think a lot of people really don't know, what they're talking about. They just see things online or get things suggested from other people. And okay, I also, what I've been seeing, a lot of people have been sending me DMs or telling me that they're about to buy a car to start driving Uber. So how exactly does that work?
Okay, that sounds great. So let's say you wanted to get a little bit more aggressive with your taxes, right? And you've already got like an old car that you're driving. Like for me, I got like a Tesla on the way, but I got my 2003 Honda Accord. 2003 Honda Accord is an excellent car and it runs great. But, I'm trying to up my image a little bit, as I get into more financial advising and whatnot. And if I wanted to be more aggressive and write off more of the Tesla, if I only drove it for business reasons, and then I wanted to say, hey, I'm using this 100% for business, which we'll figure out if that makes sense or not once I get it. And the IRS might ask, well, what are you using for personal use? Well, if I had that old 2003 Honda Accord and I use that for my personal use, little bit easier for the IRS to maybe believe that that's the case.
Right, right.
So if you buy a car and you want to write off 100% for business, you might want to think about that question, you know, what are you using for your personal use? Otherwise, you have to kind of keep track of like what percentage is personal use and what percentage is business use. So if you drove 5,000 miles for Uber and then you had 5,000 personal miles, you're only looking at being able to take maybe 50% of that, for example. Right. Of course, we can get a little bit more into that with your specific situation and research the tax law codes, because sometimes there's a little bit of provisions for how this is exactly treated. So I don't want to give you a blanket answer and be held to it, because it might be something that we'll need to double check exactly in your situation. And I could give just one example. There's one type of deduction called the 179 deduction, where if you buy like a luxury vehicle, or let's say if you bought like a commercial vehicle that's over a certain weight limit, they'll allow you to deduct the whole amount of that vehicle all in 1 year. But that's based on, they believe that those heavier vehicles, usually people aren't buying for personal use. So probably not.
Those have to be about 6,000 pounds, right?
That's right. So probably not too many people driving a Humvee around to do their Uber and Lyft, but you know, if they have like a van option or something, that could be an example.
Right, right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Are there any like direct business expenses that people can deduct, like that have like limitations? Like what are like the limits for certain expenses? So I know some people may try to, you know, find loopholes or be aggressive with deductions. Like, what do you think are the limitations, if there are any?
Well, yeah, that's a kind of case by case. It has to be reasonable what you're deducting, and directly related to your business. So a reasonable direct relation, or sometimes it can be indirect, but if it's indirect, excuse me. If it's indirect, there's usually a limitation for how much is business use and how much is personal. It's okay if I take a brief moment and get some water?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I can cut this out.
All right. Thanks for allowing me to take that break. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no worries. No worries.
That Diet Pepsi was doing pretty good, but it wasn't clearing that tickle in the back of my throat.
Right. So I could just start over like with the question again. That way, you can help, flow.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the next question is, what direct business expenses can be deducted, and are there any like limitations?
Yeah, well, when you think about it, just try to think about reasonably. What do you think is actually related to your business and what's personal? So the IRS, if they do audit you, they're usually going to look at your expenses. So if they audited you and they, you said that, hey, for my expenses, I was giving like a bottle of water to like the people who were driving with me. Well, that might sound okay, right? And say you had 1,000 trips and you give away 1,000 bottles of water. They might think that's reasonable. But if all of a sudden they start seeing something like 10,000 bottles of water, they might start to raise an eyebrow, like, what the heck's going on here?
Right.
I know a lot of times Uber and Lyft drivers don't do that, but you might give out occasionally a little bit of items here and there. Mm-hmm. So if you do that, that's an expense. Another example would be car washes. Hey, I have to get my car washed a few times a week. So you might belong to a subscription service. And if you use your car mostly for Uber and Lyft, and you do have like a quick quack car wash or whatever the car wash subscription is where you're at, that's probably a reasonable expense. You might be able to deduct most of that, for example. So if the phone is constantly being used for Uber all the time, sometimes you can get a little bit more aggressive with your phone expenses. And if we were preparing your return, we would determine how much to write off, for example, on that. And then a third thing might be if you're doing a little bit of, buying a computer, buying camera equipment, different things like that. We'll have to determine, how much is relevant to your business use and maybe make some appropriate adjustments.
Okay. Yeah. So that pretty much, I'm glad you ended it like that, because that pretty much brings in the next question. As far as people who have like another like side business, what steps can they take to separate like that business and compare to like personal expenses? How exactly can they separate?
Well, if you're really getting into it, it's always nice to have a separate bank account. Mm-hmm. And usually, like at Wells Fargo, if you bank there, which I have a little bit of experience with, right? They might try to give you like 30 different credit cards, 30 different bank accounts. Well, let's say at least 3, right?
Right.
So you could have like your business one, your personal one, and then you could use a separate card and a separate bank and check for bank account and check for everything business related. That makes it really easy, especially if you're not really that good at collecting the receipts or writing everything down. You could just go and do an Excel report from your bank account and then categorize everything that way. For most people, that works pretty well.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that does make sense. But, a lot of people probably just do everything for, one card or so.
Yeah, especially if you're putting like, if you're using the itemized things for gas and things like that, and you need to have your gas receipts at the end of the year. If you just have like one card to use for all your deductible car expenses, for example, that would be a great way to keep track of that without having to go back and spend hours combing through your bank records.
Right. So what can drivers do better to like maximize like their deductions? Because I know people will want to, I want to write this off. I'm going to try to write this off.
Yeah, so many things come out of left field, it's just, it's almost like if you want to get more aggressive, connecting with a CPA or qualified tax professional is a good way to go. And it all goes back to, is it reasonable? Is it reasonably related to your business, right? So your Tinder account, probably not. You might say, hey, I was trying to get new customers or whatever, but you might say, well, usually people use the Uber app.
Right.
So you got to be a little bit careful with that. And, I've seen people where they just say, hey, this is everything through my bank account. These are my expenses. It's like, well, no, you got some housing in there. You got some different things like that. Dog expense, hey, I have an emotional support dog that rides with me in my car. Well, okay, that's the personal expense that helps you to function, but I don't think it could be classified as that, unless it was like a working licensed guide dog or something.
Right.
We don't have too many blind Uber drivers, hopefully. If the new Tesla's coming out there self-driving, who knows, right?
Right. Yeah, that's funny. So so how often should they how often should they consult with you about like taxes?
Well, a minimum, I would say, obviously doing your tax return. So let's say you do it timely, right? So we might talk in March when you're submitting all your information, April when we review your tax return, and let's get together around August or October to do your tax projection. So, if you consider twice a year to that's submitting and reviewing, and then once a year for the tax projection, and then maybe around December again, that could be up to 4 times a year. And just not necessarily going like super in depth, but catching questions as they come along. And a lot of times I try to remind people, hey, if you're doing this as a career, as a profession, and you're thinking that you might want to retire someday, it might be a good idea to start, investing in those options that you do get tax breaks for.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I'm gonna make this video too long because people probably not gonna watch the whole thing and still ask me crazy questions. But I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this interview. And you guys, I will have Max's information in the description below, so you can contact him and get your taxes prepared. Like I said, I would highly recommend hiring a professional, and I've been working with Max about 5 years now.
That's right. And
yeah.
Ronnie and I have done a lot of great work together. So Ronnie, I appreciate you.
And, no problem.
Loving these videos. It's good to, share this great relationship with your community.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, he's a good guy. I like working with him, and like I said, it's just it's bigger than just doing taxes. I actually benefit in other ways besides, he just does my taxes. It's a lot more to it as far as like financial planning, goal setting, and things like that. So, contact them, set up a meeting. What's the best way you think? An hour meeting, or can they call you?
Yeah, usually what happens, people, you can hit me up through a text message. I think I'm on Instagram now also, and on my email, and I do have a link, so I'll provide all that to you, Ronnie, as needed. They can call my phone number. If you want to put that in the description, I'd be happy to provide that to you.
Mm-hmm.
Usually what happens is we'll give a free call. We'll talk to you, just make sure that you're comfortable with the service, you understand everything. And then if somebody wants to have like an hour consultation, I'll provide an introductory hour consultation, just $100. And we could even review your TurboTax for you if you wanted, or if you wanted just to get the information to us and set up your client account and stuff. And then we could move you into a full tax preparation service, if that's what you want, which is more expensive. I think with the discounts that I'm offering you, the typical person could be looking about $500 to get their full service done, because I do offer a $220 discount to Ronnie Spears referrals. So take full advantage of that. So you can either do the free consultation just to check in. You could do the lower cost consultation just to have somebody like looking over your shoulder, or you could do the full planning consultation, which is normally what we recommend. But I do like to make myself accessible to people, no matter what their income source is, as long as it works for them, or their income limitations, I should say.
Okay. Well, sounds good. So there you have it. You have all the information, and like I said, it'll be in the description. And at the end of the video, I will also have the link to our first tax video, so you guys can watch that just for like a little bit more clarity. And other than that, I will see y'all next time. So holla back. Peace.